Welcome back to part 2 of Photoshop CC 2021 Classroom Book, Chapter 4, Layer Basics. When we left off, we just added our clouds, and we're about to start some work with this text. So let's go back into our Photoshop, and we've got our layer showing. Let's go ahead and with our horizontal type tool, let's add some horizontal text. Make sure we don't have anything selected. Let's go on our Hawaii layer so we can go right above it. So let's go ahead now and click in our choices. So let's go ahead and choose a condensed font. So they use Birch Standard. So let's come down here and choose our Birch Standard. But you can choose anything you like. And I have 10 jillion fonts. So that makes everything slow down just a little bit. This is what happens when you teach these classes way too many times. And everyone gives you all their fonts. All right. Or I can come down here and say Birch. B-I-R. Now it's stuck. And I killed it. That's okay. It'll stop eventually. Wow. I killed it totally. This is fun. Birch Standard. There it went. Escape. Oh, it's totally not working right. All right, let's try and do this a different way. B-I-R-C-H. All right, Birch Standard. There. And we want to go ahead and make it regular. And let's make it about 36 points. So 36 isn't a, no, it is choice. 36 is a choice. And let's go ahead for our tracking. So if you go down here, our tracking is our space between the letters. So let's go ahead and make that about 250. And for color, let's go ahead and make that kind of a green color. So I'm going to go ahead and choose it's kind of green and say OK. And let's go ahead and look at our other options for character. So let's go to window and character and get a few other things that pop up. So let's go ahead and turn on our faux bold, which is this one right here. And let's turn on our all caps. All right. And we want crisp from our anti-aliasing. So instead of sharp, we want crisp. And now right below here, we're going to put Island Paradise. So it's going to put some lorem ipsum in. So that just kind of is dummy text. So it lets you see kind of what it would look like. So let's put Island Paradise. And it's okay if you don't love your colors, you can fix them later. And I'm going to go ahead and say yes and commit to our changes. So now we can go ahead and grab our move tool. And we can see our new text layer. We've got this Island Paradise right here. Kind of move this down here. Somehow I made a whole bunch of extra layers. So I'm going to go ahead and delete those layers. So yes, get rid of all these empty ones. All right. So now I've got my Island Paradise. I've got Hawaii. All right. So now we're going to go ahead and play with adding a gradient to our Hawaii. So we're going to go to Hawaii. We're actually going to click on the thumbnail, so the little square part, not the layer. We want to click on the thumbnail, so right click on the thumbnail, and we want to choose select pixels, and it's going to choose the pixels that are in the layer. Then we want to go ahead and come down to our gradient tool, which is under the paint bucket, in case you can't find it. And our gradient tool is going to give us a few different options. Right now mine's set to green. So let's go ahead, it's going to choose it from your foreground and your background color. So let's go ahead and choose a foreground color that's kind of, choose whatever you want. I'm going to choose pink. All right, and for my background color, I'm going to go ahead and choose maybe this funky green. Let's click here, grab that green, and say OK. So now I've got my gradient tool So let's go to our options bar. Let's go to make sure we've got our linear gradient. So let's grab our linear gradient right here at the top. And we could also go to window and color and gradient. Pull up a different bar. Mine's being really slow. There we go. Let's go down here to gradients. So we're going to get different types of options here as well. All right. So now we're going to go ahead into our gradient editor box. So let's go ahead right here to this drop down. And let's go ahead to, what are our choices? Let's choose our basic one, basics. Now let's grab, so these are different ways it's going to look. So I've got this one. If I don't love it, I can always double click it and go into my options and do a new gradient. I can flip flop these two. Maybe red and green are disgusting, so maybe I don't want green, maybe I want kind of this nicer pink in here. Okay, so now I'm going to do red and pink as my gradient instead. So now that I've got that, I'm going to go ahead and drag my gradient, and I'm going to go outside my legend and go across, and it's going to go ahead and, depending on how you direct that color, is going to determine how that gradient lays in. So if you go really big, you're going to get really slight. If you do just really small, you'll get a very exact. If you don't like the colors, you can always come in here and say, okay, I want to have maybe more of a white instead. And let's apply that gradient again. So go ahead and get the gradient to be what you want. And when you're happy with it, let's go ahead and do a Control D to deselect and Control S to save. And now let's go ahead and apply some layer styles. So let's go ahead and do something to these. So let's go ahead to our Island Paradise layer. I'm going to go ahead and close this gradient one up. Grab this one at the bottom. So I've got my Island Paradise layer. And I want to go to my layer style. So layer and layer style. I want to choose drop shadow. From drop shadow, we're going to choose a few different ideas. We want to go ahead and make sure it's on multiply. We want our opacity to be 75%. We want our angle to be 78 degrees. We want to go ahead and use the global light. Our distance is going to be 5 pixels. Our spread, so you can do as 30. You can use tab to get between the two. And our size is going to be 10. Now we're going to go ahead and say, make sure our preview is on so we can see what's going on. And if we're happy with it, whoop, undo. Totally changed the wrong number. This should be 78. And what else did I change? Oh, distance. Distance should be set 5 pixels. All right, and we're going to say OK. All right, so I'm happy with it. Let's say OK. We're going to close that layer, close that down. So now I want to make sure I can apply that to something else. So instead of having to go through and set all those again, all I have to do is go to my layer panel over here. I can click on my effects, which allows me to turn it on and off and kind of see what's happening. And now let's go ahead and Alt or Option drag that layer onto the Hawaii. So let's turn it back on. Make sure we can see it. There we go. So I've got it. I'm going to hit Alt or Option, bring it down here. And it's going to apply that. Oh, I applied it to the flower instead, so undo. Let's go ahead and apply it to our Hawaii layer instead. So Alt and bring it down. And to Hawaii, so you can really easily duplicate those effects without having to go through all of the actions again. So that makes it a little bit easier. And let's go ahead and add another style. Let's go ahead and add a stroke to our Hawaii. So select our Hawaii layer. Let's go ahead and go to our effects down here. And from effects, let's go ahead and grab the, we want to grab stroke. Okay, from stroke, it's going to give us a few different options. Our size is going to be 4. Our position is going to be outside. We want to go ahead and make our blending mode normal. Our opacity is 100%, and go ahead and choose a color that you want to put around the outside. I don't mind the orange, it's kind of nice. And say OK. And so now we've got a stroke around that as well. Let's do it, Control S and save. I kind of hate this color on Island Paradise, so I'm going to change this Island Paradise. Let's go into here, let's do it, grab that, select the whole thing, and let's make it not this green, let's make it yellow instead. It's kind of a turdy yellow. Let's grab that one. All right, that's better. All right, that makes me happier. All right, Control S and save. So it's very easy to change things on the fly. So now we're going to go ahead and add a satin sheen to our flower. So we want to grab this top flower layer. Let's grab our move tool. Let's grab our top flower. Let's go to our layer. Let's come down here to layer style and come down here into our drop shadow. I don't know why it's hiding from me today. Here, drop shadow. And our opacity is going to be 60%. I'm going to go tab. Distance is 13 pixels. Oh, our angle shouldn't have changed, so leave that at 78. Woo! All right, let's go ahead to our distance. Should be 13 pixels. Tab. Our spread should be 9. We've got our global light is on. Our blend mode is multiply. Don't push OK yet because we're going to add a second layer style. So let's come here to Satin. Open up Satin and see what our different options are here. Within Satin, we want to make sure that we choose our color next to the blend mode. And let's go ahead and choose kind of a pinky color. And let's go ahead and choose our, say OK. And kind of see what's going on here. Let's grab our opacity is going to be 20%. Our distance is 22. And let's go ahead and make sure our invert is selected. And when we're totally happy with it, let's go ahead and say OK. So now we've kind of created a different feel for that. So now let's go ahead and add an adjustment layer. So with adjustment layers, we can go ahead and kind of change the colors without changing the pixels. So let's go into our, which one do we want to do? I think we want to play with that second flower. Yep, we want to grab flower 2. We've got flower number 2. We're going to go ahead and grab a hue adjustment layer. So adjustments. We want hue and saturation, which is the first one on the second row. From hue and saturation, our hue is going to be 43. And our saturation is going to be 19. Make that panel a little bit bigger. Our lightness is going to be 0. And we're pretty happy with it. But now it's changing everything. You see our clouds are pink, everything's kind of pink. We don't necessarily want that. We want it to only apply to the flower. So let's go ahead and fix that. So let's go ahead and bring that up a little bit. We need to create what's called a clipping mask. So let's go ahead to our properties panel. And we want to be on our flower 2, our hue and saturation. Let's do a right click and a create clipping mask, which means only apply this to the layer down below. So now we see we get this little downward arrow. And now it's just applying to that flower number 2, so everything else isn't pink, which is awesome. And we're going to go ahead and break this one into another part. So we'll pick you up on the next one.